The conclusion of by far the most polarizing phases in all the MCU has come. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is out now and marks the end of Phase 4. I saw it this past Thursday. It was honestly, unlike previous times I've gone to see an MCU movie. I have no idea if it's because I'm getting older and I'm losing my lust for life, or the 1 to 2 Marvel movies a year of my childhood and how they somehow felt more eventful or special then compared to now, with nearly 3 to 4 movies plus the Disney Plus Marvel shows a year in my adult life. They might actually be losing their luster. Or maybe it was the annoying ass couple next to me who couldn't quite grasp the concept of, well, shutting the fuck up.
Shut the
That inane, frivolous, and most of all, remedial comments and banter don't supersede the movie other respectful moviegoers and I have waited to see, as well as spent nearly $20 fucking a ticket for.
I hope all the bad things in life happen to you and nobody else but you.
But in all reality, it was probably because I didn't know how to feel. I've went on to say how I felt about the passing of Chadwick Boseman recently, how the character of Black Panther has influenced my life, and how important I think it is we see the character of T'Challa again in live action. And going into this movie knowing he wouldn't be there, that T'Challa, the spearhead, the anchor of this franchise, wouldn't be there, brought uncertainty to me. I was hyped as all hell for Namor, but at the end of the day, this is a Black Panther movie, so I was understandably mixed going in, along with probably a lot of other people. And although only a day has really elapsed for me to let the movie sink in, I kind of don't know how to feel still, to be honest. I can say confidently that I don't feel bad. This isn't a perfect movie by any means. It's definitely not a masterpiece, but one thing that it is heartfelt as hell. It kind of has no choice but to be. We start off immediately with the death of T'Challa and how powerless Shuri feels and is to help her brother. This panic weighs heavy on her and is felt strongly throughout the sequence. The only thing I really didn't like was the whole dancing aspect of it. Like, clearly Shuri is not okay and it's deeply tragic, but people are like smiling and dancing and laughing, so I just didn't quite vibe with that. And that opening sequence of Marvel Studios with just Chadwick was powerful as hell. The whole theater went silent. A year passes and we have Ramonda as the queen attending a UN meeting where she has brought attempted pirates looking to steal vibranium from a Wakandan vessel, while simultaneously cutting to the door, stopping that shit from happening, as well as back to Ramonda sending a message to the rest of the world. If you want vibranium that bad, well, you're gonna have to fuck around and find out or look elsewhere. We then move to the Atlantic Ocean with a military ship that currently has a device that can locate vibranium now, a true game changer, and has found vibranium in the ocean. But soon before they can get out of there, they are found by the Talokanil, and this part was super badass. I really am digging the whole siren song causing people to fall into the water. It kind of felt like some old like mermaid folklore type shit. And then when Lake Bell's character, who wasn't even named in the movie, by the way, like I know she isn't the biggest actor ever, but she's been in enough stuff to get a name, like come on. But when she shoots a Tuma and it does nothing, that went hard as fuck. And then Namora came through, and then Namor coming out when she thinks she's gotten away and is safe and tosses the helicopter. That was just delightful. Okay, it kind of perfectly sets up his character as a no-nonsense mofo who doesn't take shit that could endanger his people lightly in the slightest. But this event marks the catalyst for the rest of the events in the movie, with Ramonda and Shuri taking a trip away from the palace and capital because Shuri still hasn't gotten over T'Challa's death and can't bring herself to complete the grieving ritual Ramonda planned for her. And this is when they are confronted by Namor about how when T'Challa opened Wakanda up to the world, he exposed the world to vibranium and thus began the lust for the metal. And because Talokan rests on vibranium that broke from the original meteorite and landed in the ocean, it puts his people at risk. So he feels it's Wakanda's responsibility to help and asks for them to retrieve the American scientists who built the device and threatens to come back to fuck shit up if they don't. And Tenoch Huerta was an absolute beast in this scene. I love the line, "I have more soldiers than this land has blades of grass." Just a real let your nuts hang out type of line. But this is what set Shuri and Okoye to America to find Riri Williams Williams, who didn't even make it for the government, but they somehow got their hands on it, so that'll be interesting to explore later. This leads to a pretty decent chase sequence with Riri busting out her Mark 1, which I don't know why, it just felt so good seeing that kind of early Stark tech again. It was pretty nostalgic and reminded me of like the early like Iron Man armor days, but they do get caught by the Talokans. We get to see Namora in action, as well as Atuma, who is an absolute beast, and props to Okoye for holding her own. Even though she was out of her league, she's a protector throughout. That's when Shuri and Riri are taken to Talokan, and we get to know Namor, his origins, and a deeper insight on his motivations. I really loved how they explained how the Talokanil came to be because of the diseases brought over by the Spanish, and a different water-based herb, much like their heart-shaped herb, and how Namor was born a mutant and all of his different abilities being a mutant. He really did say the great word, explaining how he was different from everyone else, as well as when his mother eventually passed and wanted to be buried in her homeland. Mind you, when he goes to do this is his first exposure to the surface world, and as a child no less. And the first thing he sees is the conquistadors enslaving the natives. And after that, he says, fuck this shit and fuck everything above the water, fucks their shit up and dips. And El Niño Sin Amor was born. He then shows Shuri Talokan, and it was beautiful, lots of Mayan influence. They even had pits. If you're a real one who watched El Dorado, you know what I'm talking about. That ethereal mint slash seafoam green light we saw in the first trailer is a big glowing piece of vibranium in the depths of the ocean. Namor brought the sun to his people. I fuck with that so heavy, and all of this to emphasize why he's doing what he's doing and why his convictions are so strong. And he gives Shuri the ultimatum in which Wakanda be their ally to take over the surface world, because honestly, if anybody had vibranium, they would have already attacked Wakanda and probably Talokan. So you really get a sense of where Namor is coming from, and you in contrast see where he goes wrong, which is the makings of all great villains. Due to Shuri's abduction, Okoye is discharged from service in a very impactful and hard-hitting scene, much thanks to Angela Bassett and Denai doing her thing as well. But this leads to Ramonda tracking down Nakia and asking for help finding Shuri, which she does and is able to help them escape, but in the process they kill a Talokanil, which is a huge no-no. So Namor responds by coming to Wakanda and drowning it. Okay, I love the action here of him fighting the aircraft, just being an overall beast and menace. Like, I love how they displayed his strength, like he's knocking the aircraft in the air, like that's how strong he is. He's knocking them off of balance. It's so damn good. He's methodical with what he does. Even when he attacks Shuri's vessel, like he makes it so he sinks them and they die a slow death if they weren't rescued. My only gripe is I felt I saw all of it already in the promos. Also, I didn't like how they bitched up M'Baku. Okay, I get he's facing Namor, but he really shouldn't be treated as a joke. Okay, again, we do not need to put down characters in order to lift others up. It's wild, but it's like, I get why he's doing it. And come on, if you're Latino, especially Mexican or Central American, that's where a lot of my conflict comes when I was watching this scene. Like, that's our guy now, okay? But he's being an absolute demon for drowning Ramonda. But it's like also, yo, they came to his home and killed one of his people, and Namor doesn't fuck around and has acted way crazier for less. So it is what it is. I do like how Ramonda was noble in her final act of saving Riri, as well Okoye saving people, and M'Baku. I think that's good stuff to show. It's hard to have to deal with another death in the film, but I think they handle Ramonda's memorial well. M'Baku drops some banger lines as well of reassurance. Then the rest of the film is Shuri and the Wakandans regrouping from the attack. I love the chemistry between Shuri and Riri while working in the lab. The similarities between the characters really help their dynamic feel natural. Shuri is eventually able to recreate the heart-shaped herb and undergoes the process of becoming the Black Panther. And this scene took me by surprise, although it was a scene I 100% expected and was waiting for because I was curious how they handle it. The way it's set up from Civil War to the first movie is that death is not the end, and I had initially thought she would see T'Challa in the ancestral plane in Panther form, but her seeing Killmonger was, I believe, a clever way to circumvent what would have been a kind of challenging scene, and it also helps to reinforce where Shuri is coming from since the beginning of the movie, a woman without faith in essentially the religion of her people. Even though the movie starts off with a prayer, which kind of goes to show how even us, most I'd say agnostic people or people who are of little to no religion, we are human, and in times of desperation we'll reach out for help anywhere, even if it's divine or mystical in nature. But this helps to show where Shuri is at. Vengeance has consumed her, and although she is disturbed that she saw Killmonger longer. The process has worked, and she leads Wakanda to the ocean to call Namor out and fight him and the Teleconil, which I gotta say, the final fight was cool, but just not as epic as I thought it'd be. I like how they really had to work together to trap Namor, but I felt it could have been more of a struggle to get him captured. That way it'd feel a bit more satisfying when they did eventually capture him. It felt a little too easy, if I'm being honest. Then on the beach, after she dries him out, I won't say it's the best fight scene I've seen in the MCU. I think Civil War and Shang-Chi really take the cake with fight choreography, but there was some very cool moments in the fight, and above all else, it was raw as hell. You could feel the impact of each shot thrown when Shuri digs her claws into Namor's back or cuts off his wings, when Namor stabs her through the stomach and she pulls it out before he can get to the water. Like, all of it was so visceral, and I love how Shuri's arc kind of matches or mirrors what T'Challa went through in Civil War of not letting vengeance consume him, and I like how she chose the noble route. I think she took what M'Baku said to heart about not risking eternal war for her people, and I like how they left off at the very least in respectable terms with an agreement. And just the way the movie kind of ends with Wakanda being okay again, like, I think that echoes a lot of the messaging that Ryan Coogler was trying to get across, which is essentially, no matter what the world puts us through, we will persist, we will live on, we will still be here after everything until the end. I think that a core theme of the movie is perseverance through insurmountable physical, emotional, and spiritual odds, remaining steadfast in a cycle of attrition. The movie ends with Shuri being able to complete the grieving ritual, which was beautiful to see her grow to let go, which is one of the most powerful things a human being can do. And then we get the reveal in the mid-credit scene that T'Challa and Nakia have a son, something that was heavily rumored, and his name is T'Challa as well. So in a way, in this universe, T'Challa lives on, which I honestly don't know how to feel about the decision, but I'm not particularly mad about it. Ultimate criticisms of the movie go, the Ross and Vanessa scenes, I understand were set up for future events, but it felt out of place in my opinion. I felt like the pacing wasn't rushed, but it felt we could have sat in moments a bit longer, like the Namor and Shuri scenes. I felt like some of the scenes could have been executed better. Like, I would have liked to have seen some dialogue between Namor and Riri, maybe show how the death of the guard was felt from the Teleconil perspective, just to overemphasize why Namor does what he does and how much he cares for his people, adding to how complex the battle to come is. Show Shuri being more pissed at what happened to Wakanda and more rage-filled at losing her mother. I would have loved to have seen that. Also, I felt the trailer really gave away a lot. Like, most of the Wakandan attack I felt I'd already seen. And lastly, the lack of T'Challa and the presence of the Black Panther is felt heavily throughout. I think even if we're going off of Shuri's Black Panther, although it's understandable why we didn't see it till the end, this is a Black Panther movie, yet there isn't a whole lot of Black Panther in it. It's complicated, I understand. This isn't to put Shuri down in any way, but this overall reinforces how important T'Challa is and how much we need to see that character again. Although it comes with its fair share of bad, the good, however, is felt just the same, and I'd wager even more. Namor was played so well by Tenoch Huerta, from his delivery of lines, his presence, and how badass they displayed him. They made him an absolute problem and a menace, just like the comics, making it hard to root for him and hard to root against him at times. Talokan was absolutely beautiful. I love how they made the journey there feel like they were in outer space. Namora and Atuma did their things, and I can't wait to see more of them and more of the Teleconil in the future, hopefully. You already know I'm about to be hitting that fucking Kamehameha like a mofo from now on, players. Denai Guerrera, as usual, brings it, playing a dedicated servant and protector of her people, going through a bit of an existential crisis when she learns that vibranium is not only in Wakanda, and that kind of shakes her to her core and shakes her faith a little bit, as well as being discharged from the main thing that gives her purpose in her life, which is her duty. I think she excelled in displaying that. Angela Bassett, you already know, did her thing as always and brought regalness and power to her performance. Riri Williams, a character I am not a fan of in the comics, has gained my interest, and although I still haven't seen enough to really call myself a fan or hyped for the series, I am way more interested to see her Disney Plus show next year. So good job, Dominique Thorne. But honestly, Letitia Wright did an absolutely amazing job. I was so curious to see how she would pull off being the lead in this movie and franchise, as big as this is, and she held her own really. It was an immense task, and although T'Challa's absence was heavily felt, she hit a number of emotional beats exceptionally and impressively carried the movie. I, of course, am a big proponent of bringing T'Challa back during Secret Wars, with this alternate universe T'Challa history closely mirroring Chadwick's T'Challa in a way say that by the end he can be integrated into the main MCU. That way maybe him and Shuri can be Black Panthers for the third movie, Wakanda can have their king back, little T'Challa can have his father, and we can have a triumphant return of this amazing character, continue his story the way it was meant to be continued, and eventually finish it off in the way it was meant to be. But as far as that goes, just to touch on the reception of this movie, because it will no doubtably be mixed, there are going to be people that absolutely hate this movie for incorporating Chadwick's real life death into the narrative, and then there will be others that love that they retired the character. And although I want desperately to see this character again, Nate more recently had an interview with E-Man Movie Reviews himself, and although the comments in that comment section are wild as hell, I felt Nate was coming from a respectable and genuine place. I know people don't trust big corporations, but I seriously don't feel like Ryan Coogler, being as close as he was to Chadwick, as well as being a legit fan of the character of T'Challa and Black Panther, would make anything to disrespect either sides. I think like Nate said, they made the movie they knew how to make, and Ryan took a risk in trying to make a movie to honor his brother and the corner of the universe he helped bring to life by saying, we'll be alright. Ultimately, feel how you're going to feel about this movie. You are 100% entitled to your opinion, and nobody can tell you how to feel. This movie is going to do different things for different people, and for me specifically, despite its flaws, this is a movie about moving on and moving forward, which are imperative lessons for navigating life. So with that being said, I am giving Black Panther Wakanda Forever a fluctuating 7.5 to 8.5 out of 10. At its worst, it's a solid story with some pacing issues and a noticeable not on the same level sequel, and at its best, it's an extremely well shot, well performed film with solid motivations and characters. Definitely one of the better MCU projects and the best MCU project of this year. I absolutely love Ryan Coogler's direction, and I hope he gets more work with the MCU in the future, and I'm hoping he's at the helm of whatever project brings T'Challa back in the future. But again, that's my opinion. You guys are more than welcome to share your opinions, whether you like the movie, whether you didn't like the movie. Let me know. That is it. If you liked the video, leave me a thumbs up, comment down below, and if you want, subscribe. I always appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope all of you guys are well, and I'll see you in the next one.